Hey there. So this Saturday afternoon for a live video, I want to talk about walls. And usually when we talk about walls, we talk about how you need to take down your walls and let people in, and you need to tear down your walls, bring down the walls. But today I want to tell you why you need to build more walls. You need, if you want to leave your wilderness behind, if you want to find healing and joy again, you need to build some walls. Build a wall. Now, the question is, what kind of wall are we actually talking about? Okay, so let's go to the Bible and figure that out, because that's just really the best place to do that anyway. And that's where I like to get my information. So, story of Nehemiah. This is something I have been studying in the last couple of weeks, in the book of Nehemiah. Nehemiah chapter 6. You got your Bible? I got mine. So, Nehemiah chapter 6, go and look it up. And this is where Nehemiah has been he's been dealing with a lot of opposition, because he has gone back to Judah, and this is originally in Nehemiah, he was working in the court of King Artaxerxes in the fortress of Susa or Shushan. Now, he asks permission to go and help rebuild the city of Jerusalem, and King Artaxerxes says yes. It's like shockers. This is the people that were taken away from there and that were taken into captivity, and now they want to go rebuild their capital city, which under any other circumstances would have been considered an act of defiance. And Artaxerxes gives permission for Nehemiah to go and supervise the rebuilding, and I think he even sends him some cash flow as well. So he devotes himself to working on the wall. There's a whole bunch of amazing stuff about humble, project-driven, gospel-driven leadership in the book of Nehemiah, but we're not going to go through that right now. We're going to go through the part in chapter 6 where, after Nehemiah has been defending the oppressed, that's a huge one, we should probably do that one another time, but after he has been defending the oppressed, next he gets major opposition for rebuilding the walls. Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem the Arab, and the rest of our enemies found out that I had finished rebuilding the wall and that no gaps remained, even though we had not yet set up doors in the gates. So, along all this time, they kept saying, you need to come down off the wall. You need to come and talk to us. You need to come and meet our demands. And Nehemiah kept saying, no, I'm here to do a job, and I am going to do that job. Well, here he says, verse 2, Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 2. So Sanballat and Geshem sent a message asking me to meet them at one of the villages. But I realized they were plotting to harm me, so I replied by sending this message to them. I am engaged in a great work and cannot come. Why should I stop working to come and meet with you? 4 times they sent the same message, and each time I gave the same reply. The 5th time, Sanballat's servant came with an open letter in his hand, and this is what it said. There is a rumor among the surrounding nations, and Geshem tells me it is true that you and the Jews are planning to rebel, and that is why you are building the wall. So, when intimidation and threats and bullying didn't work, Nehemiah's enemies switched tactics to annihilation, slander of his reputation. They switched tactics to telling deceit and falsehoods about his intentions in order to scare him enough to get him to come down off the wall and come talk to them. I replied, and then they ended, you can be very sure that this report will get back to the king, and I suggest that you come and talk it over with me. Intimidation tactic, pure and simple. I replied, there is no truth in any part of your story. You are making up the whole thing. Verse 9, they were just trying to intimidate us, imagining that they could discourage us and stop the work. So I continued the work, And here's where this is his response. I continued the work with even greater determination. Every time there was a detractor, because he knew he was doing God's work, every time one of his enemies tried to get him to come down off the wall, he said, no. I know the work I'm doing. The work I'm doing is God's work. And the more you try to discourage me from this work, the more I will keep doing it with greater determination. Then he went to visit Shemaiah, the son of Delaiah. And grandson of Mehetabel, who was confined to his home. He said, let us meet together inside the temple of God and bolt the doors shut. Your enemies are coming to kill you. But I replied, should someone in my position run from danger? Should someone in my position enter the temple to save his life? No, I won't do it. I realized that God had not spoken to him, but that he had uttered this prophecy against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. They were hoping to intimidate me and make me sin. Then they would be able to accuse and discredit me. So Nehemiah here continued doing the work God had called him to do because he knew what God had told him to do. And no matter how intimidating his enemies were, no matter what kind of mind games they tried to play, no matter how they tried to get him to stop this good work of healing the city, of rebuilding the walls, no matter what they did or said, he refused to be intimidated. Now, if you work in the field of advocacy or abuse recovery, oh my goodness, you can relate to this because there are so many people who are quick to tell you to come down off the wall and to intimidate you and to make up stuff about you and to try and warp or twist what you're saying and thinking and doing as though you are not doing it with the right intentions because they're trying to protect the powerful. Well, if you are a survivor, you may also have experienced this kind of thing, this gaslighting, these flying monkeys, where other people are using people around you to try and deceive or discredit or intimidate you in your healing process. Well, here, I decided, as I was reading and studying this story in Nehemiah 6, I was so inspired by Nehemiah's determination. I started thinking, what do the walls represent? I mean, he's doing this work, right? But what do the walls represent? Well, I found my answer over in Proverbs chapter 25, verse 28. And that says, a person without self-control is like a city with broken down walls. Whoa, okay, so what does this tell us? A person without self-control is like a city with broken down walls. So if we have broken down walls, that means we don't have good boundaries. That means we don't have self-control. That means we don't have good self-regulation. That means evil and other people's influences and wickedness and codependency and addiction and whatever else can flow right in, and evil and unpleasant things and sin and wrong choices can flow right back out. Without good walls, good boundaries, good healthy self-regulation and self-discipline and self-control, we are easy pickings. We are not protected. Our hearts and our minds and our spirituality is not protected. So if we don't have self-control, we're like the city of Jerusalem when Nehemiah had to go rebuild it because there were broken down walls and anything could get in or out. Now, what do broken down walls and self-control and Nehemiah have to do with advocacy and work in leadership development and abuse recovery? Well, Isaiah 58 ties all of that together. Isaiah 58, verse 12. This is where it's explicitly ties it together. Some of you will rebuild the deserted ruins of your cities, the Bible says, and you will be known as a rebuilder of walls and a restorer of homes. But let's move back up a little bit. Now, we've done a whole Jesus bubble on Isaiah 58. But Isaiah 58 starts with a command. Shout aloud with the voice of a trumpet blast. Shout aloud. Don't be timid. Tell my people Israel of their sins. Yet they act so pious. They come to the temple every day and seem delighted to learn all about me. They act like a righteous nation that would never abandon the laws of its God. They ask me to take action on their behalf, pretending they want to be near me. We have fasted before you, they say. Why aren't you impressed? We have been very hard on ourselves and you don't even notice it. I will tell you why, God responds. It's because you're fasting to please yourselves. This is the church people he's talking to. Even while you fast, you keep oppressing your workers. What good is fasting when you're fighting and quarreling among yourselves? This kind of fasting will never get you anywhere with me, God says. You humble yourselves by going through the motions, by bowing your heads like reeds bending in the wind. You dress in burlap, you cover yourselves with ashes. In other words, you're making a really big pretense of being super sanctimonious and holy. One of the presentations in the Bible study that I was listening to just this morning said that we in our pews as people in the faith community, very often we have intellectual believers but emotional atheists sitting in our pews. Intellectual believers but emotional atheists. When people make a big show of going through all the motions and they don't actually believe in their hearts or have an emotional connection with the truth that they say they believe, and it's all just stuff on the outside, that is not something from God. Verse 6 of Isaiah 58, no, this is the kind of fasting I want. Free those who are wrongly imprisoned, lighten the burden of those who work for you, let the oppressed go free, remove the chains that bind people, share your food with the hungry, give shelter to the homeless. In other words, be focused on relational justice. Do not hide from those who need your help. Then, this is an if this then that equation. Then your salvation will come like the dawn and your wounds will quickly heal. Your godliness will lead you forward and the glory of the Lord will protect you from behind. Then, when you call, the Lord will answer. Yes, I am here, he will quickly reply. Remove the heavy yoke of oppression. Stop pointing your finger and spreading vicious rumors. Feed the hungry. Help those in trouble. Then your light will shine out from the darkness, and the darkness around you will be as bright as noon. The Lord will guide you continually, giving you water when you are dry, restoring your strength. You will be like a well-watered garden, an ever-flowing spring. And some of you will rebuild the deserted ruins of your cities. You will be known as a rebuilder of walls and a restorer of homes. In other words, in order to restore our homes, we must rebuild our walls. So when the world is telling you to let your walls down, drop the walls, bring down all the walls, do whatever, that is not what God is saying. Now, am I saying you should lock your emotions away behind? No. If you've listened to anything I ever talk about, you know that that's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about rebuilding self-discipline. I'm talking about self-regulation. I'm talking about having a conscience again, rebuilding empathy, which is tied to conscience. I'm talking about how God has called us to have healthy boundaries. One of the things that I posted a meme on this just yesterday, I think it was, and I'll drop it in a comment underneath this video. And that is to stop saying I'm sorry for everything that's not your fault. Now, believe me, I teach constantly that if you have done something wrong and you have hurt someone else, you need to own it. You need to take full responsibility for it. You need to not shift the blame to anyone else. But survivors of abuse are very often conditioned without self-control and good boundaries. We are conditioned to take responsibility for everybody else's stuff. So we find ourselves going around saying, oh, I'm so sorry I'm late. Oh, I'm so sorry I missed it. Oh, I'm so sorry I'm not organized. Oh, I'm so sorry I'm emotional. Oh, I'm so sorry I cried. Oh, I'm so sorry I'm needy. Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. Stop! Stop! Say thank you instead. Thank you for waiting for me. Instead of I'm so sorry I made a mistake, thank you for helping me improve. Instead of I'm so sorry I'm so emotional, thank you for listening to me and being there when I need you. Instead of I'm so sorry I'm needy, thank you for helping me when I needed it very much. Shift that frame of mind to have better boundaries instead of taking responsibility for things that aren't yours to take responsibility for and saying sorry all the time for stuff that's not your fault. Say thank you. Appreciate others And if there's something you've done wrong, by all means, have the fierce conversation and go and humble yourself and take responsibility for it. But if it's not your suitcase to carry, learn to sit back and ask yourself, is this my suitcase? Does this suitcase, does this thing, does this problem, does this consequence belong to me? Or does this suitcase have somebody else's name tag on it? And if this suitcase belongs to somebody else, if it's the result of their choices, if it's the result of their actions, their addiction, their habits, their abuse, their choices, let them carry it. Refuse to pick up the handle. When we establish healthier boundaries, we take steps toward restoring our homes, rebuilding safety inside the walls of our little dominion, our little homes, our little families. Whether you are a single parent, whether you are still in a relationship, whether you are not in a relationship, whether you are in a new relationship, these are things you can do to leave behind that feeling of being unsafe and without boundaries, where everything just flows in and flows out, and where you have more self-control, healthier boundaries, where you are a more safe person and you are able to choose to surround yourself with more safe people. If you want to read more on this, I highly recommend the book Safe People by Cloud and Townsend, and also the book Boundaries, same authors. Those two books, phenomenal. And in the meantime, when you decide to set some healthy boundaries, if you decide that it is time for you to not be just allowing yourself to be walked all over by people who do not have your best interest at heart, and you are ready to build some walls, you now have a scriptural foundation for doing that. In doing so, in the right spirit, with the right type of self-control, you will be restoring your home.